Remember when the macdaddy in 2015 promised only modest deficits? Deficits that would only be $10 billion or lower? I just had to double check just to make sure that I was correct. Yeah, he said $10 billion or lower. We'd only have modest deficits. And when Stephen Harper said, don't trust this Mac Daddy, he said, don't trust him. He even said it in his campaign speech. He said, don't trust. He said he wants only modest deficits, so small you can't even see them. He said, don't trust this Mac Daddy. And Canadians don't. The 39% of Canadians, 39% of misguided, foolish Canadians trusted this Mac Daddy with their money, with their taxes, with everything. They trusted him. Now, the 2018 budget has come out, and the new outlook now shows an $18.1 billion deficit for 2018-19. Now, it's expected to shrink to $12.3 billion in 2022-23. But, I mean, that's still higher than the $10 billion that the Mac Daddy promised that he was only going to keep the deficit at. And before I even continue, I just want to say that, my thing with spending is I'm a populist, first of all. Spending has to be done wisely, but I do agree that you need to help people. And there are actually certain things in this budget that I think are long overdue, but nonetheless, it's better late than never. They're finally doing something about the poisonous water that I've been ranting and raving about. For y'all know, I've been ranting and raving about this for years. The government has been spending billions of dollars to help other countries. $10 million for Omar Khadr. Billions and billions of dollars just going all over the place, and the natives are just staying with poisonous water. Well, he is bowed to pressure, and he's now paying attention to the natives, even though the natives should not trust him because this is an election time. So he's paying attention to y'all. Well, it's not election day, not an election year now, but it's coming up. So he's only paying attention to you guys because the election is coming up. Next year is election. So that's the only reason he's paying attention to you guys. I mean, don't think that he's doing this just because he cares. I mean, he had years to fix this problem. Many budgets before this to fix this. But all those other budgets, most of the money went abroad. The thing is that the Mac Daddy is just not keeping any of his promises. He said that he would only have a $5.7 billion deficit for 2018. That 2018 would be a $5.7 billion deficit, but now it's 18.1 billion dollar deficit. And some of the things that are being spent on, the federal budget sets aside $20.3 million over 5 years, beginning in 2018-2019, to resettle 1,000 refugees as government-assisted refugees. So these are people from countries, I guess, war-torn countries, but the government is actually refusing, this is iPolitics, they're refusing to say where these people are coming from. So for all we know, they could be from anywhere. They just say, oh, you're a refugee now. We don't know where they come from, and they're going to be government-assisted refugees, $20.3 million for them. The government aims to provide $194.1 million over 5 years, beginning in 2018-19, and $33.19 million per year ongoing to protect temporary foreign workers. Well, my position on temporary foreign workers is that until every single Canadian who is born and bred in Canada or who lives in Canada and who's a citizen or a resident of Canada has a job, we should not have temporary foreign workers. The only reason we have temporary foreign workers is so these business people can get cheap labor, so they don't have to spend on benefits and all that stuff. Well, I say to hell with those people. You force them to hire Canadians who don't have any work, and you force those Canadians to work. If they can't find any other work, they need to find work picking the grapes and picking the cotton and cleaning the toilets and doing all those stuff that they say they don't want to do. Hey, if they want to see a penny of welfare, then they have to work. I don't care if you want the job or not. That's what if the governments of Canada, the provincial governments, the federal government of Canada had any nuts, they would say, "Hey, look, young man, young woman, if you want to see a penny of any welfare money or any retirement, you work, you pick that grapes, and you pick that cotton, and you clean those toilets, and do all those stuff that these temporary foreign workers are doing. I don't care how bad you don't want to do it. If you want to see welfare, if you want to see any benefits from the government, you do it. So I don't care. We're spending all this money on temporary foreign workers. What's the CTV say about all this? They say the GDP growth rate is expected to slow from 3.0% in 2017 to 2.2% in 2018, bottoming out at 1.6% in 2019. So we're going to have Obama-style GDP growth. 1% GDP, while America is cutting taxes and attracting jobs and attracting investors and attracting all these people, and they're getting 3% GDP. We're stuck at Obama-style GDP, 1%, barely moving along. Barely moving along. You see what's happened here? The reason why the GDP was so high last year and this year and last year and the year before was because the macdaddy was really not paying that much attention to Canada. He was giving all our money to other countries. And in some cases, that might actually help these multinational businesses. So, they might have been doing well. Now the macdaddy is worried about an election coming up in 2019, and he has this budget that's working, he's paying a little bit more attention to Canada, and now that he's doing it, the GDP is going down, which means that liberal policies never work. I mean, you can talk about Chrétien all you want, but Chrétien was probably more of a fiscal conservative than any of the conservative prime ministers we've ever had. Certainly more conservative fiscally than Brian Mulroney. But the thing is that Canadians, and actually Canadians are beginning to wake up. I better knock on wood when I say this, but the thing about it is, and I've been actually reading this, as many as 40% of Canadians disapprove of the Liberals' 2018 budget, and they wish that the budget would be balanced. They want the Prime Minister to keep his promise. Now, when it comes to social programs and all that stuff, I'm big on that. But I think we need to spend the money wisely. For example, with healthcare, the government has to drop this idea that only the government should be involved in healthcare. Because we've seen that the government can't do it by itself. They can't. They're incompetent. They're closing hospitals. They're cutting care. We have hallway healthcare. We have all these rich corporations, billion-dollar corporations, who hire so many people on a daily basis. We should force those people to use that money to give their workers full, paid, covered, private insurance, to give the public sector a break. And that's it. And those companies pay for that insurance fully, 100%. You get rid of all the taxes that businesses have to pay. Get rid of all the taxes that businesses have to pay. Zero taxes going to the government. Use that money to give your workers benefits like health insurance, retirement insurance, all those benefits. That will take the burden off of government, and we can use the money to pay down the debt and all that stuff. But the thing is that if we just pretend like we have a limitless pot and our debt just keeps going up and up and up and up and up, sooner or later, we are going to be spending more of our taxes on paying interest rates on our debt than paying for the services and the benefits that we rely on and that we expect. So, and I don't think Canadians are going to like that. And eventually, the lenders are going to say, we don't want to give Canada any more let Canada borrow any more money. And then in that case, we're going to be like Greece, and we'll have nothing. So we have to focus on the debt. We have to worry about it. But the macdaddy broke his promise. He said there'd only be modest deficits, and now we have $18 billion. We are going to have $1 trillion debt if this trend continues. If this current trend continues, Canada will have $1 trillion worth of debt and will be spending most, if not almost all of our taxes on paying interest on our debt. And then we won't have any money for social programs. That's what happens when you have high debt. This is the Arana Nation. Say no to this reckless spending, not spending the money wisely, pretending like we have bottomless pit. Reject this budget, giving all this money to support temporary foreign workers, taking jobs from Canadians, while many Canadians are still on welfare, and giving money to resettle refugees and even illegal aliens. Say no to this budget.